Hello and welcome to Premiere Tips. So you want to learn how to work with Premiere Pro, the world's most famous video editing software? Well, you came to the right place. In this video, you will learn all the necessary basics to get you started with editing in Premiere Pro. You will learn how to turn separate clips into a movie, how to add transitions, how to add music and sound effects, how to color grade your videos, how to add titles, and how to add effects, and a lot more. In this video, I'll be working with Premiere Pro 2020, but most, if not all things that I show in this video, are similar in the older version as well. Okay, enough introduction. Let's go to the Premiere and start some editing. If you start up Premiere for the first time, you'll be greeted with this screen. Your previously open projects will be displayed here. But we are going to start a fresh one by clicking on the new project. In the next screen, you can give a name to your project, and you can choose a location for the project file. Next, you've also got the option to select a renderer for your project. And if your video card is strong enough, you have the option to select GPU acceleration. You should definitely use that option if you can, because the software-only option will be a lot slower. So now we just click on OK to create a brand new project. And there it is. Welcome to Adobe Premiere Pro. Depending on your version of Premiere, this might look slightly different. But don't worry, the basics are all the same. Okay, the first important thing to know is that interface of Premiere is made up of panels. You can change the look of the interface by simply moving the panels around with the left mouse button and drag them to anywhere you like. And, if necessary, you can also change the size of the panel. In this way, you can create a custom layout that works best for you. In the next step, we're going to import some footage into Premiere. The files you import into Premiere will be collected in the project panel, which you can find here in my layout. There are multiple ways to import files into Premiere. One of them is by right-clicking in the project panel and then select Import. This will open up the File Explorer on a Windows PC or the Finder on the Mac. Then you can browse through files that would you like to import. In this folder, I've collected all the assets that I want to use for my project, but of course, you can use your videos, photos, and music. Anyway, let's now select all the files and then click on Open to import them. As you can see, we've now got all the files inside the project panel. You can switch between different views, so this way you can see the thumbnail or more detail about the files. But I prefer the more detailed list for my workflow. Next, we are going to combine all these individual clips on the timeline. To start editing, we first need to create a sequence. I won't go into much detail, but you could see sequence as the foundation of your project. It contains a lot of basic settings like frame rate and resolution. I can always recommend you to use a sequence with the same settings as your footage. And to achieve that, you need to right-click on a video file, and then select New Sequence from Clip. This will create a new sequence based on the settings of the video file. Okay, now the real fun begins. We are going to start editing on the timeline. The timeline is separated in two parts. The top part of the timeline is mainly for visual content like videos, images, and other editing objects. The bottom tracks are for the audio contents like music, sound effects, and voiceovers. If you like, you can change the height of the tracks. All you need to do is to drag it up in the video part, or drag it down in the audio part. There is a couple of ways to get your items on the timeline. One of them is by simply dragging an item over from the project panel to the timeline on the desired position. You can start and stop playback on the timeline by pressing the space bar. The video will be displayed here on top in the program monitor. You can also use the playhead here on top of the timeline to scrub through the video. It is also an option to select multiple clips at once by holding the Shift key. And then, you can also drag them over to the timeline. As you can see, this video clip also has audio. But this one, for example, is video only. You can also see the difference in this little icon here in the project panel. If necessary, you can also zoom in here on the timeline by using this slider here on the bottom. You can also hold the Alt or Command key, and then scroll with your mouse to zoom in or out. If you want to shorten or trim something on the timeline, you can hover over with your mouse at the beginning or the end until this red icon appears. Then, you can left-click and hold and drag it to the left or the right to trim the item. The mouse pointer that we have used so far is named the Selection tool inside Premiere. There are some more tools to use in Premiere, which you can find here. And the Razor tool is the one that we're going to use next, which you can find here, or you can press the C key to enable it. The Razor tool is used to cut items on the timeline. With the use of the left mouse button, you can cut items like video clips in two parts. After cutting, you can go back to the Selection tool. You can do this by clicking this icon here or hit the V key. With the Selection tool enabled, we can now click on the part that we just cut out, and we can remove this by hitting the Delete key on the keyboard. But now we have a gap here between these two parts of the clip. Let's say we want to glue this together. One of the options here is to select all the other clips, and then drag them over to glue it back together. But there is also another option which is a bit faster. So let's undo this for now. And then right-click on the gap, then select Ripple Delete. This option automatically moves all the other clips back to close the gap. Let's do the same here. Right-click and select Ripple Delete. All the other clips are now glued together. So far we've only used one track of the video timeline. But we can also stack clips on top of each other. And in Premiere, the clip which is highest in stack will be displayed, just like you see here with the mountain drone shot. Another way to get items on the timeline is by double-clicking on them inside the project panel. This will display the items in the source monitor, the panel over here. In this panel, you can preview an item and you can also add in and out points. Press the space bar to play the video, and hit the I key to create an in point, and hit the O key to create an out point. Over here you can see the selection that we made with the in and out point. You can also change the length of the selection by dragging it to the left or the right. If you left-click here and then drag it over to the timeline, only the selected portion will be added. In case you only want the video, so without the audio, you can click here and drag this over to the timeline. And if you want the audio, so without the video, you can click here and drag this over to the timeline. In the next chapter, we're going to look at effects and transitions. A little bit hidden in the away, we've got the effects panel here in the second tab next to the project panel. Here you can find all the built-in effects inside Premiere Pro. We are not going to look at every individual effect in this video, but we are going to apply a view of them so you can understand how to use them. The first effect that I'm going to look at is the Gaussian blur effect. You can find this effect under the video effects, blur and sharpen. This effect can make anything blurry except audio. To apply an effect, hold it with your left mouse button, and then drag them over to the timeline and release it on top of the clip. Okay, nothing happens. So, now what? Now we need to go to the Effect Control panel. In this panel, you can find the effects that we just applied. And this is also the place where you customize an effect. In this case, the amount of blur, for example. And also, if you want blur on the edges of your clip as well. But those are just the specific settings for this specific effect. Let's apply another one to show you what I mean. So the next effect that we're going to apply is the Find Edges effect. You can find this effect under Video Effects, Stylize. And I will also apply this to the same clip. As you can see, this one directly changes the picture. So, each effect is different. Back into the Effect Control panel, we'll first disable the blur effect. You can do this by clicking this little icon here. Now we can see the other effect a bit better. And this is what happens if I play around with the value of this effect. This all is just an example to show you that we can combine an effect, and that each effect is different, and has its own properties. And those properties can be adjusted inside the Effects Control panel. This same Effect Control panel can also be used to edit some of the properties of an item on the timeline. Let me show you what I mean. One of the clips that we added to the timeline has a different resolution than the project. The resolution of this video clip is 4K, but the other clip has an 8K resolution. So that's why it's not filling up the entire frame. This is something that we could adjust inside the Effects Control panel. Inside the Motion section, we can adjust the scaling properties. If we set this to 200%, it should fill up the entire frame. And the Effects Control panel is also the place where we can animate stuff. I'm just going to show you the basics, but if you wanted to animate something, you need some keyframes. This so-called keyframe can be enabled by clicking on the stopwatch icon here. We've now created the first keyframe, which holds a value of 200. Now I'm going to move a little bit backward and create another keyframe with a value of 100. So now if I play back, you can see that the scaling animates between the values 100 and 200. And as I promised, this chapter is also about transitions. Inside the Effects panel, you will find a lot of built-in transitions. The ones for video can be found in the Video Transitions folder, and the most common ones can be found in the Dissolve folder. To apply them, drag them over to the timeline and place them between the two clips. As I mentioned, this is one of the most common transition that you'll find in video editing. And it looks like this. Another one that you see a lot is the dip to black transition. This can also be found in the Dissolve folder, and it looks like this. I'm going to apply another transition between the two clips. But, as you can see, here I'm unable to center the transition. To fix this, you need to select the transition and go to the Effects Control panel. Then click on the Alignment option and select Center a Cut. Now the transition is center in the middle. Next, I'm going to show you how to create titles inside Premiere Pro. The quickest and easiest way to add text is by using the Type tool, which you can find here, or hit the T key to enable it. You can then click anywhere in the program monitor and start typing. And if you're done typing, you can hit the Escape key to exit type mode. And then go back to the selection mode by hitting the V key on the keyboard. Now you can find the text on the timeline here as a graphics layer. And to be more precise, an essential graphics layer. And that is why we need the essential graphics layer to adjust the text. To activate this panel, we need to go to the Windows menu, and then select the Essential Graphics panel. This will open up the Essential Graphics panel here on the right. To adjust the text, we need to go to the Edit tab. This is the place where you can do a lot of text adjustment. And you can find the text layer that we just created up here. As an example, let's make some changes. First, I will increase the size of the text, then change the width of the text, and center the text and do some color changes as well. Let's make the text black and add some white background. Okay, it's looking pretty good. We can now add some more text layers, if we like, by clicking this new icon here and select Text. This will add a new text layer based on the same settings that we just applied. But we can edit this text layer separately without affecting the other one. So, for example, if I change the size of this text layer, it won't affect the other one. And the same applies to all other settings, like changing color, for example. And you can also reposition every layer individually. So, this way, you can actually build your titles with layers. And this is not limited to text only. You can also add some basic shapes like a rectangle, for example. And if you combine text with shape layers together, you can be very creative and make some awesome titles. In this case, I will disable the fill and enable the stroke and increase the size of the stroke. This way you can create a box around your titles. So the Essential Graphic is a very powerful tool, especially if you combine this with a couple of effects and keyframes. you can get some cool text animation like this. But if that's a little bit too complex for you or you don't have time to create your own titles, then you can also use templates. In the Browse tab of the Essential Graphics panel, you can find some of this template. They are very easy and simple to use, just drag them over to the timeline, and they work right away. You can then go to the Edit tab and make some adjustments there. By the way, if your Edit tab looks different, that's because I made this template inside Adobe After Effects. We will talk more about that in a future video, so be sure to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss that video. So get yourself some good templates and save a lot of time. In this chapter, we're going to look at color correction and color grading. If we like, we could talk for hours about this topic only. But because this is an introduction tutorial to Premiere, I will only stick with the basics for now. Okay, let's go. First, I'm going to import another clip. I've got the File Explorer here and I will drag a file over to the timeline. So now you've learned a second way to import files. Anyway, this is a video clip that I shot with a DJI Mavic Air 2. It's a little bit dark and slightly under contrast. So this video clip needs some color correction. And for this, we need the Lumetri color panel, which we're going to activate in the window menu, and then we're going to select Lumetri color. This will open up a new panel here on the right. First, we are going to head over to the basics section, which is meant for color correction. Like I mentioned, the shot is a bit too dark and slightly under contrast. So that's why I'm going to increase the highlight and the contrast. And I'll decrease the shadow to make it look even better. And finally, I'll also increase the saturation. And by the way, you can use this checkbox to see the before and after. Okay, so how about color grading? For that, we are going to have a look at the creative section. This is the place where you can add a certain mood or feel to your footage. Here, in the pull-down menu, you can find a lot of colors presets. Especially, I've added the Cine Punch LUT Master color presets. So that's mean, I got more than 700 color presets. And these color presets also known as LUTs. And here, in the little window below that, you can preview the LUTs. Just click this arrow on the side to preview the next one. And if you found one that you like, just click on it to apply it. If you want, you can also lower the intensity by using this slider. Okay, so this is the final chapter of this video, and that is exporting the video. So let's say this is the result after editing for days, and we want to export this as our movie. To achieve this, we need to go to File, then go to Export, then select Media. This will open up a new window where you can set some export settings. Here in the left bottom corner, you can see the duration of the video that we're going to export. You could also a smaller portion of the movie by changing the selection here with the slider. Next, we need to select a format for the export. And as you can see, there are many options here. But we'll go for one of the most used and common formats, in which is the H.264 format. Next, you've got a lot of preset options to choose from. But I'm going to select YouTube 1080p Full HD preset. If you click here, on the blue line, next to the output name, you can change the folder that would you like to use for the export. And you can change the name of your movie. And now your movie is ready for export. But I do recommend selecting hardware encoding on the encoding setting and enable the option Use Maximum Render Quality. The export will take a little longer, but it will give better quality. And now, we just need to click on Export. Premiere will now export your movie to the selected directory. Depending on the speed of your system and the length of your project, this may take a while. And that concludes my Premiere Pro Basics tutorial. I sincerely hope that you enjoyed this tutorial, because it literally took me days to compile my knowledge into this 20 minutes video. So, if you did enjoy it, then please like the video or leave a comment below. Anyway, it's time to end this one. Thanks a lot for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.